a quick restart on that one. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Okay, sweet. Alright. So yeah, this is the Ryozae Alliance project. This is chapter 1. I'm gonna go grab a soda real quick. Okay. The Ryozae Alliance project. I don't have... Work has been killing me. Okay, so I don't have a ton of energy, actually. Real quick. One more test. One more test on this. Still. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. That's not bad. I'm gonna turn these ocean waves down. Just a smidgen. Alright. Okay. The Ryozae project. Sunday, May 4th, 1997. Oh, sorry. That made it sound like the whatever. All hope seemed lost as the failed monster appeared before them. Silver had failed, and now the children were all alone on the space station. No one could save them this time, not even the dragons. 22-year-old Bernard Sparker's words flowed with carefree embellishment. There's something so soothing about a good bedtime story, as though all the problems of the world could suddenly be laughed away to the sound of frolic and mishaps. Far be it from him to spoil his sister's late-night entertainment with the dark visions that haunted his sleep, the shadows cloaking his body, tightening and binding, while soulless, bloodshot eyes watched him scream helplessly into a dead, dark void. Perhaps most people would argue it was pathetic for a man his age to be afraid of simple nightmares. It was also unheard of to be abducted by actual space aliens. His half-sister, 13-year-old Odessa Moore, plowed onward enthusiastically. But then Gayen found them! Her waist-length dark red hair, spilled over her shoulders as she bounced up and down on her bed, her wild imagination taking the reins and breaking the laws of physics with reckless abandon. Teleportation, telekinesis, space bubbles, and magic materials that could become whatever she liked. At first, his stories had been simple and childlike. But as long as his little sister was his competitive co-storyteller, they just got weirder and weirder. And that was fine with him. It was cathartic to watch her plumb the depths of her own creativity, and he enjoyed the challenge. Gayen was a character he had introduced, but since she had taken the reins, She'd made him her own beast, using him to torment various other characters in the most bizarre and ridiculous ways she could think of. Odessa's long hair cascaded around her as she dropped back against pillows and piles of stuffed animals. The moonlight caught her pale skin, so different from his own tanned complexion, her features so unlike those he'd inherited from his father's Southeast Asian lineage. The thought raised so many questions with no answers. He drew a breath and let it out slowly, forcing the subject from his mind while his sister carried on. Then he laughed, continuing his nightly round of entertainment and glad for the distraction it provided. And so, everything went back to normal for the children, and Silver returned to the dinosaur planet to... There was a knock at the door, followed by his mother's voice. "Don't forget, she has school tomorrow, and you have a job to do. No games, Maxwell. I want you in bed, and if I catch you again, I'll take the power cord and you won't have a TV. At all until Christmas. But if you don't like it, you can get a real job in town and move out." "At least it's not drugs," he called back, knowing perfectly well she wasn't ready for him to leave. "We're almost done." 5 minutes. He waited until her shadow disappeared from the gap under the doorway before he continued. "Where was I?" "The dinosaur planet," his sister reminded him, bouncing upright again, her green eyes wide and far from sleep. "Oh, right. So, Silver returned home to a nice, long seaside vacation. A nice, sunny, campy ending. Should have been fine. Until Guyenne appeared." He blinked, thinking fast. If he let Guyenne show up now, they could be here for another 2 hours. The one time he'd gone along with 2 appearances in a single session, Bernard had once been suckered into spending an uncommonly long Saturday night trying to figure out how to undo a clever 10-year-old's alternate reality. Had it already been 3 years? How time seemed to fly. "Right," he said, "because a vacation without Guyenne would just be boring. But that will have to wait." Odessa's laugh held a wicked hint of mischief as she fell back onto her pillows. "We'll pick it up from next time. From there next time." "Okay," she resigned with a sigh. He hugged his sister and shot a glance at the blue LCD numbers beside her bed. 10:07. She got his gaze and rolled her eyes. "It's not like you're gonna sleep anyway." I sleep?" I sleep!" he said defensively. I thought those were question marks, sorry. "Yeah, in the middle of the day." "Well, you have to go to bed." She studied him thoughtfully with a probing look that was confirmed when she asked, "Do you still dream about them? He leaned back, sighing as he glanced around her room and the scattered books, toys, and games. Even now, 10 years after the monsters had been slain, he kept many of his own belongings stored out of sight, where he couldn't trip over them, and they wouldn't form strange shadows in the dark. He no longer hid things behind his bookshelf or dresser to make noise if something was sneaking around, though he still kept a handful of jingling cat toys scattered around his bed. If his mother hadn't noticed them missing, she hadn't said anything. "I keep hoping you'll forget anything happened at all," he said.
"Right," she said dryly. "Like I'm just gonna forget a giant shadow over my head."
"You were 3.
"Yeah, and then I spent a whole year with our grandparents and cousins because the shadow aliens took my brother, and we all had to keep it a great big secret and act like everything was somehow normal. We've been keeping the secret ever since."
It is normal to keep secrets like that. Can you imagine if the neighbors found out? Or the government?"
"I know,"
She sighed in surrender. The door opened, admitting their mother. She walked across the room, idly kicking aside a tray of A stray fairy-winged stuffed cat. Then sat on the end of the bed, thin-framed and pale like her own mother and sister. Rona Moore's silver-streaked red hair fell in waves around her gaunt features, her aging lines drawn by years of stress. She looked up at Bernard, pleading. Really, sweetie, you can't pick something else to tell stories about?
This is fun!
Odessa insisted, launching a hug at her. Like what? Bernard asked. Their mother squeezed her daughter and asked,
Whatever happened to that tabletop game? Shadowrun? That seemed like fun.
Bernard shrugged. Bedtime is a no-rule zone. No stats, no dice. Just chaos. Their mother's fingers trailed down his right arm, sad and thoughtful, until she reached his hand and grasped it gently. As long as you're okay with it. It helps, he promised her. Odessa bounced up and down, still caught up in the excitement of storytelling.
Besides, what's the good of seeing a real alien dinosaur planet if you never get to talk about the dinosaurs?
Their mother's brows rose.
First of all, that wasn't really a dinosaur planet, just a refugee camp. Second of all, most of what we saw was designed for human habitation. Real dinosaurs!
Bernard sighed. Yep, real dinosaurs.
And I have the only brother on Earth who turned down a 6-figure job working for them.
You have the only brother in the galaxy who was stalked and tortured by shadow aliens 7 times. Odessa rolled her eyes and bent back her fingers as she started counting.
They offer you a job, a house, a cat, space-age healthcare, free college?
And you'd see me 3 times a year if you're lucky. And we'd never be able to talk about this again. Their mother patted her leg.
Get some sleep, Des. Be glad you live in boring times. So boring, she moaned,
flopping back. Her eyes trailed over to her bedside table.
My brother could beat the living like the Jetsons or something.
Bernard laughed. That's not how that would work out. Their mother walked over and took a pile of books off the table, setting them aside on her desk.
Sleep, young lady. No more nonsense tonight. Boring!
Be careful what you wish for, Bernard said as he walked out of the room. He headed down the carpeted hall, pausing at the white plastic pet gate that kept his mother's cats out of his room, and away from his snake. The light of the hall glinted off the glass curve of his TV screen. Then his eyes trailed over the rest of the room. The shadows beneath his desk and bed, the closet door. Places where amorphous things could lie in wait. For the moment, he closed his eyes. Many things had changed over the years, but his imagination still liked to play tricks on him now and again, and he wasn't in the mood to spend the night fighting with his own psyche. The heavy blackout curtains on his windows were drawn back, inviting soft indirect light from the moonlit sky over Edisto Island, South Carolina. It had been 10 years since their family had packed up and moved to the Sea Islands from Lincoln, Nebraska. That's why we got this playing, the Sea Islands. So I may have pre-read this. 10 years since the monsters had been plagued in 10 years since the monsters that had plagued his childhood had been slain, and they'd come here to look for a fresh start. His mother's second husband was originally from Florida, and her closest friend from a town near Charleston, not far from where he now stood. The place was enchanting and rich, with culture and history, with enough wilderness to make it also very quiet and isolated. I'm sorry, made it sound like also. It's also, yeah, anyway. Whatever. You can see it right here. It's a truck. Anyway, he'd grown to love that part. The fact that he now lived an hour from the nearest mall or theater, not so much. 10 years. Sometimes it felt like a different lifetime. But the years since had truly flown by, and he still eyed the shadows, as if something might be looking back at him. He kept walking, heading for the kitchen instead. The front of the house was dark, but moonlight streamed through the large window panels overlooking the salt marshes, and the glittering creek leading out to the Dahu River, illuminated in twinkling diamonds like a dream. It was hard still to believe some days that it was real, that he could stand in his own house and enjoy such a view, unafraid of the shadows around him. He crossed the open living room to the marble-top kitchen island and walked around it to grab a beer from the refrigerator. "Bed!" came his mother's stern voice from the hall, echoing slightly off the vaulted ceiling planks and beams. "Just one, promise," he said, clicking the kitchen spotlights on and fishing through a drawer for the bottle opener. "Besides, it's not like you weren't going to have one." She huffed. "I will now." Then she walked over and grabbed a dark bottle of palmetto for herself and popped it open. "I was going to be good tonight. I want you in bed after that, though, Max. I don't like you staying up all night. It's not healthy. Staring at that TV is even worse. You have places to be tomorrow." He'd committed himself to doing volunteer work with sea turtles. Aye, sea turtles. Hold on. Wait. It'll be funny.
How did Jack get off the island? Well, I'll tell you. He worked for 3 nights till all men went into his presence. Then on the 4th morning, he roped himself a couple of sea turtles, lashed them together, and made a raft.
He roped a couple of sea turtles.
Aye, sea turtles.
Aye, sea turtles! Oh, I totally lost my spot. Okay. He committed himself to doing volunteer work with sea turtles. Wait, how do you say it? How do you say it?
What did he use for rope?
Wait, it won't let me...
He roped a couple of sea turtles.
Aye, sea turtles.
Aye, sea turtles. I don't have that, like, old voice. Aye, sea turtles. That wasn't too bad. And they work with everyone else while everyone else slept. Slept. I can't read. That meant he worked in the hours between the turtles and the waking tourists, looking for nests before anyone could disturb them. Often, that meant he stayed up all night, did the job, then came home around 7 or 8 a.m., and slept until mid-afternoon. He smirked, taking a drink, and asked, "What part of my life screams healthy?" She returned the look, taking a swig of her own, and said, "Look around you, babe. If 9 years of peace, and all of this," she gestured around them with her bottle, "isn't enough, call your counselor back." He considered her words, turning to gaze through the sliding doors at the quiet wooden deck beyond. Still no moving shadows, and nothing waiting in the darkness. Just a gentle breeze blowing through their yard, rustling the thick, heavy fronds of the sabal palmettos planted on the rugged border between the spongy, manicured Bermuda grass and nature's tall, smooth Spartina reeds. He pictured the dense natural barrier of native wax, myrtle, oaks, and sweet gum on either side of the property. The azaleas at the head of the gravel driveway, and the stately date palm in front of the carport. So, like, I'm imagining a sort of like a one-story house, but it's like kind of two-story because it has like that one story on top and like that garage underneath. That garage like area, but the living space is basically just on that one story where you go to the basement. And I picture that it's like sort of on like a hill, right? And yeah, it's like a very exotic place. I did picture it on a beach. I thought they were right on a beach, but I might be a little wrong on that one. But Spartina reeds do grow in the water as well. So anyway, he could have picked any of those things to be grateful for. Instead, smiling, he answered with a very wry touch of humor. Well, not everyone can say they've been abducted by aliens.
See? Positivity!
That's good. That's good. Good joke. They both laughed, making light of what had been a desperate matter.
Well, let's go, she said. I know you're planning to sit on the dock with that beer. We'll go listen to the fish jump together.
Ah! They are on a beach! I got him! Let's go. Afraid to let me out of your sight?
Let me have a drink with you, would you? You could share some of those wild bedtime stories with me. Tell me how much of it's a lie so I can sleep better knowing you're not risking our lives for a better story hour.
Can't you just trust me? And we just sit on our nice normal deck with our normal drinks and listen to the fish jump instead like regular people? She glanced down at her beer thoughtfully, smirking again.
I suppose I can't say no to that.
A single beer shouldn't have been a problem. Instead, Rona Sparker slept fitfully and woke at 4:13 in the morning with her heart pounding wildly. Stark fears of her dreams burned into her mind. Only if she wasn't single anymore, was she? It had been over a decade since she had married Dresden Moore. 16 years this June. What's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? At least she hadn't been with her ex-husband in the dream. She'd made a conceited effort to move on from that man. She had definitely been single in the dream, though, raising her child alone. Dwelling over the sudden departure of Terry Zhao. Zhao? Probably Zhao. Of Terry Zhao. From her life would do her no good. But her son didn't make it easy to forget that man she first married. Sometimes Max smiled the same way Terry had, or said little things that almost sounded like him, and regularly reminded her that he preferred his middle name, Bernard, though she'd never told him it was the name his father had chosen. Sometimes she even thought he looked more like his father than anyone in her family, although her own father had dismissed the idea. He saw himself so much in Max that she couldn't bring herself to argue with him. Not with that proud, happy glow in his eyes. His eyes. Her son's eyes. In her dreams, the boy looked like the Walking Dead. She choked on the thought. One moment, Max would be in her arms, so small and so brave, but so scared. The next he'd be gone. Whisked away in broad daylight. These dreams, nightmares. Were they signs of the future or just anxiety over the past? Was her son ready for the world? Had she done everything she could do for him? Had she missed anything? There was, of course, the matter of his ungodly temper, but there was no helping that. Therapy had done him worlds of good, and that helped her breathe. Calmer than her sister's eldest, for sure, but when his limits broke, it was like a tree falling, poignant, loud, and memorable. Like that time his high school sweetheart dumped him for some muscle-headed chalk, and her son put the boy's face into the parking lot, which had scared the boy even more? Which had scared the boy more? The part where her non-athlete son almost broke his nose, or the part where her son had growled at him like some kind of beast. Like one of them, she thought. Like a Ryozae. It was no wonder she had nightmares. She took a breath, stifling the tears and fears of her demented subconscious. She loved him so much, and feared for him so much that it shook her to her core. Again? Dresden muttered groggily. She sat up, silent, resisting the urge to bite down on her lip. His hands slid down her back as he spoke softly. I'm sure he's fine, Ro. They're dreams. It didn't feel like a dream, she answered. It never does. Look, we've had a hell of a time. You're worried. I know you are. But if you would just admit it, the dreams might not be so. So... She stood from the bed in a quick, sharp motion, and his words trailed. The moonlight shone silver through the curtains and blinds across the sand-colored carpet, the pile soft and comforting between her toes. She crossed her arms, trying to get a grip on herself. The low polyester shag beneath her feet was real, just as real as the rugs and hardwood planking in her dreams. The rugs she had picked out for the house she'd bought with Terry while she was pregnant with Max, for their house in Nebraska. At least, in a dream, something might have been out of place. Dreams might have changed, but even the bold red vase his mother had bought for the wedding was sitting on the mantel. She'd had it in a box since 1978, electing to save it for her own son over smashing it to bits, as much as she'd wanted to at the time. There was no longer a sense of, this is more real than that. It was just there. Real carpet and real flooring and real shadows that had her on guard. Real noises in the night, real tears in her tiny son's strange, eerily grown-up eyes. His small fingers grasped her as she hugged him tight, terrified to let him go. He was never an adult in those dreams. Always a child, and always scared of some formless terror. And then he'd be gone when she turned her back, and her heart would wrench itself back into knots again. She'd wake up in tears. He'll be fine, love. Tristan got up, sliding from her side of the bed toward the window. Besides, he added, we're getting too old to be up drinking so late. That can't be healthy. As he approached, she leaned back against his broad chest. He was well built and broad-shouldered, with the muscular figure of a working man. When he smiled, it was a big, warm expression that stretched into his wide, bristly cheeks and into his warm brown eyes. His strong, hairy figure gave her something to lean on. His gentle, optimistic nature a pillar of support. Terry had been the opposite. When she had been worried, she had leaned into his trim, linear frame. He had a way of absorbing her into his own soft, smooth... God damn him anyway! What was wrong with her? He wasn't there. It was Dresden 10 times... It made Dresden 10 times the man he'd ever been. 100 times. Where had Terry been when her son had raised hell because his favorite video had died after the fucking stores closed? Where had he been every damn night Max had decided he didn't like veggies anymore and was going to be a Komodo dragon for the rest of his life? For that matter, where the hell had he been the time she'd had to call a plumber to fix the bathroom sink? Oh God, she wasn't sure her embarrassment would ever fade. Which was worse? Max had trying to fix it himself, or her 7-year-old son, her 7-year-old, trying to have a manly conversation with the plumber. And where had he been every time those creatures had come calling, snatching her son from her life? If it hadn't been for the Ryozae, might have been long dead. Nightmare and dark. Max had called the monsters simple monikers, yet nonetheless appropriate. She couldn't stop herself from crying. Boy in her dreams, so dreadful. The way he had so many years ago, thin and quiet. If Tristan had dreams about her daughter the way she did about her son, he'd be crying too. They were barely even in the dreams. It was usually just her and Max alone. And then just her. Tristan hugged her, and he finally turned to let his powerful arms embrace her, although she didn't return the gesture. He sighed, but said nothing. She could handle most of her own problems, but he was often quick to remind her that she couldn't take on everything alone. Right now, though, it was... If she was going to discuss this with anyone, it was going to be with Max. And he had enough problems of his own. He'd gotten much better these past 8 years, something she didn't tell him often enough. But now he was drinking, almost as much as she once had. How much had he actually resolved? How much was he just repressing with alcohol? If he did leave now, how much would he backslide without her? Nothing is going to happen to him, Dresden whispered, pushing his fingers into her thick wavy hair. He's lucky he hit that boy on school grounds. Oh, I think that was her. He's lucky he hit that boy on school grounds. That boy on school grounds. Okay, sorry. I have to reread those lines. Nothing's going to happen to him, Tristan whispered, pushing his fingers into her thick wavy hair. He's lucky he hit that boy on school grounds. A quiet staccato sound left Dresden's lips as he barely suppressed a laugh. Well, first of all, that was 5 years ago. Second of all, the boy had it coming to him. He was a jackass, and you'd have done the same. Probably, she agreed, and then sighed. The touch of his fingers on her scalp was relaxing, but it couldn't remove the fear from her mind. The dreams are getting worse. Relax, sweetie. Stop giving them so much thought. I've tried! She wept, sinking into him. Dreams are dreams, Rome, love. They have no sway in the real world, okay? He's going to be fine. He's a bright young man, and he's going to be just fine. Come on. Summer break is around the corner, and then you'll have time to relax. She shook her head. You know how it is. My grades are submitted, but I've still got things to do to wrap up the semester, and then I've got to start thinking about the fall. They're asking me to take on a new course. I need to get that Java class. He squeezed her gently. The stress must be getting to you. Let me know when you've got time, and I'll take off one day to watch Dessa and the house so you can enjoy yourself. Or we can leave her with Max for a night, and we'll go out to dinner. Oh, heavens, no! She cried, half laughing. We'll come home. She'll be sitting on the couch covered in mud, eating candy and watching TV while he's holed up in his room playing the video games. If we're lucky, it'll just be her that tracks mud into the house and not both of them. Tristan laughed openly. Then leave her with your sister, or the Durants. Their daughter's a good influence. You have options. It's just stress, sweetie. Just a manifestation of stress, that's all. She did her best to calm him down so he would go back to bed, but she could not convince herself that something truly terrible wasn't around the corner. And thankfully, he wasn't alone. They had strong family ties. They were blessed with people they could count on. And Dresden was right. He was a bright young man, and a man now and intelligent enough to make decisions for himself and look after his own affairs. He needed practical experience in the world, but he was ready for that, wasn't he? She couldn't hover over him forever. She took a breath, forcing herself to calm down, until her husband finally kissed her cheek and withdrew. "Get some sleep," he whispered. "I am not the only one who has to work tomorrow," she whispered shakily. "Good night, dear." He snorted under his breath. "Too damn true. Good night, sweetheart. Sleep well." She heard him crawl back into the bed. It took her another minute or so, but she finally joined him and found him propped on his elbows, waiting for her. Only then, after he was sure she was going to try and sleep, did he lay down and go back to his own dreamland. She spent another hour wondering if she should say something to Max, just to be sure he'd take more care, or if she'd just be piling more stress on him by worrying. Then she fell back asleep, and she dreamed normal things she didn't remember so well come morning. It's so good. Ah, some of the lines that are so good. Like the last line, I love. Dreamed normal things that she didn't remember so well come morning, which is like a normal thing that someone would do. Like it's showing that she was at ease and comfortable and like, you know, for context of my word choice here, I'm going to say approachable is not exactly the right word, but like when someone's at ease, chilling, you know, maybe like, you know, drawing or something, or well, maybe not drawing, but like, you know, they're approachable, they're at ease, and so she's like, she's very chill and relaxed there. It shows so well that Dresden did a very successful job in calming her down. I really like that. There was another line somewhere in here that I really liked. I don't remember exactly where. But the way the mom worries, I think it's just it's so good. And then it also shows that she has a fantastic relationship with her son. While also keeping secrets from him, like the way that he prefers his middle name Bernard. It's so good. Okay, where's the next one? Okay, real quick, I'll end the stream there for the first chapter.